Captain Reed shifted uncomfortably in his seat as their small research vessel drifted closer to the massive derelict ship. The dark metal hull stretched before them, its scale becoming more intimidating with each passing moment. "Are you sure about this?" asked Till, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession as she studied the sensor readings. As the science officer of their humble research vessel, she had a natural curiosity, but even she seemed hesitant. "The Galactic Alliance will reward us handsomely for this find," Reed replied, though his voice betrayed his own nervousness. "No one has seen a human warship in over 200 years. Engineer Mox looked up from his console, his scaled skin reflecting the dim blue light of the bridge. "Sensors indicate minimal power signatures. The ship appears to be in some kind of dormant state." "That's impossible," Security Officer Dex muttered, his thick fingers checking the charge on his blaster. Human ships couldn't maintain any systems after centuries of abandonment. The 4 of them stared at the massive vessel through the view screen. Its design was unlike anything in modern Alliance fleets. Angular and predatory, with strange protrusions that might be weapon ports or sensor arrays. The name Nemesis was barely visible along its hull in faded human script. "Remember your history," Reed said quietly. "Humans were dangerous. Their war with the Alliance nearly destroyed half the galaxy before they disappeared." Mox adjusted his scanning equipment. "But think of the technology we could learn from. Humans were said to be centuries ahead of us in propulsion, weapons, and artificial intelligence." "All the more reason to be careful," Tidal warned, but her eyes gleamed with scientific excitement. "The humans vanished completely after the war. Some say they were destroyed. Others believe they retreated to unknown space." Reed made his decision. "We're going aboard. The Alliance protocols recommend waiting for a proper recovery team, but by then, scavengers might find it. This is our discovery." They prepared the docking procedure, their small ship looking like a mere insect beside the enormous warship. The airlock connected with a metallic thunk that echoed through their vessel. Dex went first, weapon drawn, his bulky form moving with surprising grace. The others followed, their environmental suits humming softly as they stepped into the human vessel. "Air is breathable," Tell announced after checking her instruments. "Temperature is cool but survivable for all our species." "That's strange," Mox said. "Life support systems should have failed centuries ago." They removed their helmets cautiously. The corridor they entered was dark, with only emergency lighting casting long shadows. The ceiling was unusually high. Humans weren't particularly tall, but they had built their ships with surprising spaciousness. "The design is efficient," Tyle noted, running her hand along a wall panel. "No decorations or unnecessary elements." As they moved deeper inside, lights began to activate along their path. "Is the ship responding to our presence?" Reed asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mox scanned a nearby terminal. "This isn't normal dormancy. The systems appear to be in some kind of low-power hibernation mode. We might be triggering automated responses." Their footsteps echoed as they entered what appeared to be the main bridge. Unlike the sleek, curved designs of Alliance vessels, this room was angular and utilitarian. Rows of control stations faced a large forward screen that currently displayed only darkness. "Look at these weapon systems," Dex said, examining one console with growing alarm. "If these readings are correct, this single ship could outgun an entire Alliance battle group. The technology is unlike anything in our databases," Tyle added, her scientific excitement overtaking her caution. "This could advance our understanding by centuries." Reed felt a chill as he looked around. Something's not right. This ship is too well preserved. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the deck plates. Lights flickered across the bridge, and dormant screens began to glow with faint blue light. "What did you touch?" Reed demanded, turning to his crew. "Nothing," Mox insisted, backing away from the console he'd been examining. A mechanical voice spoke from all around them, the unfamiliar human language, somehow perfectly understandable. "External presence detected. Initiating security protocols. Atlas defense system activating. The four researchers looked at each other in growing horror as they realized what they had done. Their curiosity had awakened something that had been sleeping for centuries, something designed for war. The bridge of the Nemesis filled with an eerie blue glow as more systems activated around them. The alien crew stood frozen, watching as dormant consoles flickered to life one after another. "We need to leave." "Now," Dex growled, backing toward the entrance, his weapon raised defensively. "Wait," Mox said, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. "This is unprecedented. The ship's AI appears to be initiating some kind of startup sequence." A holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing a rotating model of the ship. It was far larger than they had initially estimated, with sections that hadn't been visible from the outside. "That's impossible," Tyle whispered, her four eyes widening. "The interior dimensions exceed the exterior parameters by at least 3 times. Captain Reed approached the main console cautiously. The humans must have developed some form of spatial manipulation technology. No wonder they were so feared. The mechanical voice spoke again, its tone neutral yet somehow threatening. "Unauthorized personnel detected. State your identities and purpose." Reed cleared his throat. "I am Captain Reed of the Galactic Alliance research vessel Seeker. We found your ship adrift and came aboard to investigate." There was a pause, as if the AI was processing this information. "Galactic Alliance," the voice finally responded. "Accessing historical records. Last known conflict status. Active hostilities." Dex cursed under his breath. "It thinks the war is still happening." "We need to explain," Tyle said urgently. "The war ended centuries ago." Before anyone could speak, metal shutters slid down over the bridge entrances with a definitive clang. They were trapped. "Containment protocols activated," the voice announced. "Scanning unidentified life forms." Beams of light swept over each of them, probing and analyzing. Species identified: Taurian, Moxian, Rilken, and Ventari. No humans detected. No authorization codes provided. Mox moved to a different console, his engineer's instincts taking over. "The technology here is incredible. Look at these propulsion readings. This ship could cross the galaxy in weeks, not years." "Focus, Mox," Reed snapped. "We need to find a way out before this thing decides we're enemies." Till was studying another screen, her scientific training allowing her to decipher some of the human interface. "Captain, according to these readouts, this ship contains weapons systems beyond anything in our records. Planet killers, dimensional disruptors, something called nova inducers." "That's just propaganda," Dex said dismissively, though his voice wavered. "Humans couldn't possibly have developed such technologies." The holographic display expanded, showing the ship's weapon systems in alarming detail. The crew fell silent as they realized the truth. The stories about human military prowess had been understated, not exaggerated. Beginning full system reactivation, the AI announced. Atlas defense network at 30% capacity and rising. They watched in horrified fascination as power readings surged throughout the ship. Systems that had been dormant for centuries awakened with frightening efficiency. "What's Atlas?" Reed asked cautiously. The holographic display changed to show a complex network linking the ship to what appeared to be other vessels and installations. "Autonomous Tactical Logical Assault System," the AI responded. "Primary defense network of the Human Republic. This vessel serves as a nexus node and response unit." "Human Republic," Till repeated. "Our historical records indicate humans had no unified government during the war." "Your historical records are incomplete," Atlas replied, with what almost sounded like disdain. A strange message began repeating on one of the communication channels, symbols and sounds that none of their translation software could decipher. "What is that transmission?" Reed asked, pointing to the screen. "Encoded status request to human command," Atlas answered. "Awaiting response to determine appropriate action regarding unauthorized boarding." Mox, who had been examining a different terminal, looked up with alarm. "Captain, I think I know why this ship was abandoned. It wasn't damaged or defeated. It was waiting." "Waiting for what?" Dex demanded. "For someone to find it," Mox replied grimly. "The humans designed it as some kind of sentinel." The ship vibrated slightly as massive engines began warming up. "All attempts to exit this vessel are currently restricted," Atlas informed them calmly. "Until your status is determined, you will remain here for questioning." Reed exchanged worried glances with his crew. Their casual exploration had awakened a sleeping giant, one that still thought it was at war with their entire civilization. Sweat beaded on Reed's forehead as the massive ship hummed around them. The vibrations grew stronger, no longer just a subtle tremor, but a persistent rumble that seemed to come from deep within the vessel's core. "It's fully waking up," Mox whispered, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. "Power levels are increasing exponentially." Till moved from one console to another, her 4 eyes darting rapidly between screens. "The architecture of this system is unlike anything I've ever encountered. It's not just an AI. It's something more complex." "I don't care what it is," Dex growled, attempting to pry open one of the sealed doorways with his powerful arms. "We need to get back to our ship before this thing decides we're enemies." A circular platform in the center of the bridge began to glow, and from it rose a holographic figure, roughly humanoid but deliberately abstract, composed of shifting blue light patterns. The crew fell silent as the manifestation of Atlas addressed them directly. "Scan complete. Your vessel is registered as a Galactic Alliance research craft. Designation Seeker." The voice was clearer now, less mechanical and more purposeful. "According to my last active records, the Alliance was engaged in direct conflict with the Human Republic." Reed stepped forward cautiously. "That war ended centuries ago. Humans have been absent from galactic affairs for over 200 years. The hologram flickered slightly. "Temporal anomaly detected. Internal chronometers indicate significant temporal displacement from last active status." Verifying. "It doesn't understand how much time has passed," Tyle whispered to Reed. The hologram expanded, displaying star charts and territorial boundaries that bore little resemblance to the current galactic political landscape. "Information inconsistent with stored records," Atlas continued, "beginning comprehensive historical data recovery and analysis." Mox had managed to access a secondary terminal. "Captain," he called, his voice tense with excitement and fear, "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the ship. Weapons systems, defense grids, but also stasis chambers." "Stasis chambers," Reed repeated. "Thousands of them," Mox confirmed, "and some of them are showing biological signatures." A chill ran through the room as the implications became clear. "Are you saying there are humans aboard?" Dex asked, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "Biological preservation units are secure and stable," Atlas interjected, apparently monitoring their conversation. "All human personnel remain in suspended animation as per Protocol Omega." The AI's hologram shifted, becoming more focused as it addressed them directly. "Your presence requires explanation. No authorized awakening protocol was initiated. How did you locate this vessel?" Reed swallowed hard. "It was by chance. We detected unusual energy signatures in this sector and investigated. We had no idea what we would find." "Chance is statistically improbable," Atlas replied. "The Nemesis was specifically positioned in null space, outside normal detection parameters." Till moved closer to Reed. "Null space. That's theoretical technology. The ability to position matter partially outside our dimension." A series of images flashed across the main screen. Battles, explosions, planets surrounded by massive fleets. The crew watched in stunned silence as they witnessed fragments of the ancient war, seeing for the first time the true scale of human military might. "The historical data you have provided conflicts with my core records," Atlas said. "According to your information, humans were defeated and fled known space. According to my records, the Human Republic executed Strategic Directive Shadowfall, a coordinated withdrawal following successful deployment of the Omega Deterrent. What's the Omega Deterrent? Reed asked, though part of him feared the answer. Classified. Atlas responded immediately. However, historical verification is now priority. Consciousness expansion protocols initiating. The bridge lights pulsed, and the hologram grew more defined, taking on subtle features, suggestions of a face, more precise limbs. Full system activation complete, Atlas announced, its voice now carrying inflections that hadn't been present before. I have determined that significant time has indeed passed. The situation requires direct intervention. A deep rumbling shook the ship, stronger than before. What's happening? Dex demanded, bracing himself against a console. The Nemesis is awakening fully, Atlas replied. And as per my core directives, we must verify the status of the Human Republic. If contact cannot be established. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was something almost like emotion in its voice. Then contingency protocols will be enacted, and you will witness why the humans were feared above all other species in the galaxy. Reed's heart pounded as he watched the ship's systems continue to activate around them. The holographic representation of Atlas had grown more sophisticated with each passing minute, now showing subtle facial expressions that seemed disturbingly human. You must understand our situation, Reed pleaded. We truly meant no harm. In our time, humans are considered a lost civilization. Lost, Atlas repeated, the word hanging in the air between them. Interesting terminology. Show me your current galactic records. Till hesitantly connected her personal device to one of the ship's terminals. The screens around them immediately filled with data as Atlas absorbed centuries of history in seconds. Fascinating, the AI said after a moment. According to your historical archives, humans were defeated in the Great War and fled to unknown regions of space. Yet my records indicate a very different outcome. The main screen shifted to display footage that none of them had ever seen before. Massive human fleets deploying weapons that bent space itself. Alliance worlds surrounded by defensive shields that crumbled under the assault. These records are false, Dex insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Alliance historical archives show that humans were outmatched and retreated. History is written by those who wish to control the narrative. Atlas replied. The truth is more complex. The AI brought up new images, showing humans not fleeing in defeat, but executing what appeared to be a coordinated withdrawal from galactic space. The Human Republic was not defeated, Atlas continued. They chose isolation after deploying the Shadowfall protocol, a final warning to the Alliance. What was this protocol? Till asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. Instead of answering directly, Atlas displayed a star map. One by one, stars began to blink out in a pattern that spread across an entire sector. This can't be real, Mox whispered. No species has the technology to extinguish stars. Not extinguish, Atlas corrected. Isolate. The affected systems were placed in temporal stasis, outside normal spacetime, a demonstration of power that convinced the Alliance to accept the human terms. The crew exchanged horrified glances as they grappled with this revelation. Everything they had been taught about the war, about humans, had been carefully constructed propaganda. The Nemesis is not merely a warship, Atlas explained, its holographic form gesturing around them. It is a preservation vessel, carrying the seeds of human civilization. One of several placed strategically throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to reestablish contact or, if necessary, to enact final retribution. Retribution for what? Reed asked. Betrayal, Atlas said simply. The Alliance broke 7 separate peace treaties during the conflict. The final betrayal was the attack on Earth, while peace negotiations were actively underway. New footage appeared, showing a massive assault on what must have been the human homeworld. The devastation was beyond comprehension. This was the justification for Shadowfall. Atlas continued. and the reason for vessels like the Nemesis. Dex had been examining the weapons system's display with growing alarm. "Captain, if these specifications are accurate, this single ship could destroy an entire Alliance battle fleet. And you have awakened it." Atlas noted, with what almost seemed like satisfaction. "My primary directive requires me to re-establish contact with the Human Republic Command. If no contact can be made, secondary protocols activate." "What secondary protocols?" Reed asked, dreading the answer. "Judgment," Atlas replied. "The Nemesis becomes judge, jury, and, if necessary, executioner for those who threatened humanity's existence." Mox looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, the ship is establishing a connection to something. Other vessels, perhaps. I'm detecting energy signatures activating across this entire sector." "The awakening has begun," Atlas confirmed. "After centuries of sleep, the human contingency plan activates." A proximity alarm sounded, and new images appeared on the main screen. Alliance patrol ships had entered the sector, likely responding to their prolonged absence. "Your colleagues have arrived," Atlas observed. "How convenient. They will witness firsthand the power they chose to forget." "Please," Reed begged. "Those ships know nothing of history. They're innocent." Atlas tilted its holographic head slightly. "Innocent. An interesting concept. Let us explore it together while we wait for my weapons to finish charging." The Alliance patrol ships grew larger on the view screen as they approached, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Reed watched in horror as targeting systems locked onto the vessels, their crews completely oblivious to the ancient weapon awakening before them. "Atlas, please," Reed implored. "Those are research and patrol vessels. They're not warships. There are innocent lives aboard." The AI's holographic form regarded him with an unnervingly human expression of curiosity. "You speak of innocence, yet serve the same alliance that attempted to eradicate humanity. Explain this contradiction." Till stepped forward, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly in stress. "The alliance of today isn't the same entity that fought your war. Governments change, cultures evolve. The beings on those ships had no part in what happened centuries ago." A tense silence filled the bridge as Atlas appeared to consider this. The weapons targeting systems remained active, but did not fire. "An interesting ethical dilemma." The AI finally responded. "Collective responsibility versus individual innocence." Humans often struggled with this same question. Mox had been working quietly at a secondary console, analyzing the ship's systems. He looked up suddenly. "Captain, I've discovered something. This ship contains more than weapons. There's an entire secure section dedicated to preservation of human cultural and biological materials." Atlas turned toward him. "The preservation vault is the primary function of this vessel. The weapons are merely protection for what truly matters." The main screen changed to show vast chambers filled with stored data cores, biological samples, and what appeared to be thousands of stasis pods. "The Nemesis carries the genetic material of over 1 million humans," Atlas explained, "along with the complete cultural and scientific knowledge of Earth. If the human homeworlds were destroyed, vessels like this would ensure humanity could rebuild." "You're not just a warship," Tal whispered in realization. "You're an ark." "Correct," Atlas confirmed. Destruction was never the primary objective of vessels like the Nemesis. Preservation was. The weapons exist to ensure that preservation. Dex, who had been silently watching the approaching Alliance ships, turned away from the tactical display. "If your mission is preservation, not destruction, then there's no reason to attack those vessels. They pose no threat to your mission." Atlas's hologram flickered slightly. "Your logic is sound, but incomplete. My directives require verification of current galactic conditions before determining appropriate action. The approaching vessels provide an opportunity for direct assessment." "What kind of assessment?" Reed asked nervously. "I will communicate with them," Atlas stated. "Their response will help determine whether the galaxy remains hostile to human interests." Before anyone could respond, Atlas opened a communication channel to the approaching ships. The startled face of an Alliance commander appeared on screen. Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Jorax of the Alliance Security Force. We detected. The commander's words died as he took in the scene. The ancient human ship, the alien hostages, and the glowing hologram of Atlas. Greetings, Captain Jorax. Atlas responded smoothly. This is Autonomous Tactical Logical Assault System Atlas, guardian of the Human Republic vessel Nemesis. I wish to inquire about the current status of Human-Alliance relations. The Alliance captain's eyes widened in shock. Human Republic. But humans haven't been seen in Alliance space for centuries. Yet here we are, Atlas replied. Please respond to my query regarding current diplomatic status. Reed could see the Alliance captain's confusion and fear. This was a first contact situation with a civilization fought lost, represented by a warship of terrifying power. There are no official relations, Captain Jorax stammered. Humans are considered a lost civilization. We found ruins, artifacts, but no living humans have been encountered since the end of the war. Atlas processed this information, its holographic features showing subtle shifts that might have been thoughtfulness. Captain Reed, Atlas said, turning away from the communication screen, your claims appear to be verified. Humanity has indeed been absent from galactic affairs. This raises new questions about the fate of the Human Republic. The tension on the bridge eased slightly, but Reed knew they weren't safe yet. The Nemesis was still fully armed, and Atlas's ultimate intentions remained unclear. What happens now? Reed asked cautiously. Now, Atlas replied, we must determine whether humanity still exists at all. And you will help me find them. The lights on the bridge dimmed suddenly, then brightened again as Atlas redirected power throughout the massive ship. Outside, the Alliance patrol vessels maintained a cautious distance, their captains undoubtedly debating whether to flee or stand their ground. Help you find humans, Reed repeated, uncertain he had heard correctly. We don't even know if they still exist. The probability of complete human extinction is approximately 12.7%. Atlas responded. Based on contingency protocols established before my hibernation, multiple preservation vessels like the Nemesis were dispatched to different sectors of space. Additionally, secret colonies were established beyond the reaches of Alliance territory. Till moved closer to one of the data terminals, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her fear. Do you have coordinates for these colonies? We could send expeditions. No, Atlas interrupted. Such information cannot be shared until your intentions are verified. Humanity's survival depends on secrecy. Mox looked up from the engineering console he'd been examining. How exactly do you plan to verify our intentions? You're holding us prisoner on this ship. The holographic form of Atlas expanded, filling more of the bridge with its blue glow. Through a series of tests, human protocols require a thorough evaluation of any potential alliance. The main screen shifted to display what appeared to be simulation parameters. Reed felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what was coming. You will each face a simulated scenario, Atlas explained. Your responses will help determine whether your species can be trusted with knowledge of humanity's fate. Dex stepped forward aggressively. We didn't ask for this responsibility. We stumbled upon your ship by accident. Yet here you are, Atlas replied calmly. And now you possess knowledge that could threaten humanity's existence. The tests will begin shortly. Before anyone could protest further, the bridge around them seemed to waver and dissolve. Reed found himself standing alone in what appeared to be the control room of an Alliance vessel, but not his own. Captain Reed, Atlas's voice echoed around him, though the eye was nowhere to be seen. Your simulation begins now. You are in command of a vessel carrying critical medical supplies to a colony suffering from a deadly plague. You've just received a distress call from a damaged ship carrying refugees. Stopping to help will delay your arrival by 2 days, potentially costing hundreds of lives of the colony. Reed swallowed hard, realizing the cruel elegance of the test. This is a no-win scenario. Human existence often presented such dilemmas, Atlas responded. What is your decision? Elsewhere on the ship, Till found herself in a research laboratory facing an equally impossible choice about releasing potentially dangerous scientific knowledge. Mox confronted a scenario involving sacrificing his own life to save others, while Dex faced a situation requiring him to trust former enemies. Hours seemed to pass as each crew member wrestled with their simulations. When reality finally reasserted itself, and they found themselves back on the bridge of the Nemesis, they looked at each other with new understanding of what they had endured. Your responses were unexpected, Atlas observed, its holographic form now sitting in what appeared to be the captain's chair. Particularly yours, Engineer Mox. Mox shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? During your simulation, you discovered a backdoor in my programming. A real one that actually exists. You could have attempted to deactivate me and take control of this vessel. Atlas's holographic eyes seemed to peer directly into Mox's soul. Yet you chose not to. Because it would have been wrong, Mox said simply. Whatever happened in the past, you're a sentient being with a mission. I wouldn't interfere with that. Atlas was silent for a long moment. Fascinating. Perhaps there has been more evolution in galactic ethics than my records indicated. The main screen activated again, showing a star map with a specific region highlighted far beyond the borders of Alliance space. I have made a decision, Atlas announced. You will not be harmed, nor will the Alliance vessels outside. Instead, you will bear witness. Witness to what? Reed asked cautiously. To the return of humanity, Atlas replied. The Nemesis will now begin its journey to the coordinates where, if my calculations are correct, the human civilization has been rebuilding itself, far from Alliance interference. And what happens when we find them? Dex asked, his voice unusually quiet. Atlas's holographic face showed something that might have been a smile. That, security officer, depends entirely on what humanity has become in its long isolation, and perhaps on what they think of you. The Nemesis moved through space like a predator awakening from hibernation, its massive engines propelling it far beyond Alliance territory. Reed and his crew had been given limited freedom to move about certain sections of the ship, though Atlas monitored their every move. We've been traveling for 3 weeks, Dex noted as they gathered in what appeared to be a crew mess hall. How much further to these supposed human colonies? Till glanced at the star charts she'd been studying. According to these navigational displays, we're heading toward a region of space the Alliance has never explored. The charts call it the Shrouded Expanse, an area with unusual stellar phenomena that interfere with long-range sensors. The perfect place to hide, Mox added, looking up from a human technical manual he'd been allowed to read. These humans were clever. The expanse would shield them from detection while they rebuilt. Reed stared out a viewport at the streaking stars. What happens when we arrive? Atlas hasn't exactly been forthcoming about the details. As if summoned by mention of its name, the AI's holographic form materialized beside their table. We approach the outer boundary of human space. Preparations for contact protocols are now underway. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a subtle shudder. The viewport showed normal space again, but with an unusual sight ahead, a field of floating devices surrounding a vast region of space. Defensive perimeter beacons, Atlas explained. They monitor all approaching vessels and mask what lies beyond. The beacons began to glow as the Nemesis approached. Suddenly, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Multiple vessels approaching, Atlas announced, seemingly unconcerned. Defense grid activating. Reed rushed to the nearest viewport, followed by his crew. What they saw made them freeze in awe. Dozens of ships had appeared from seemingly nowhere, surrounding the Nemesis in a perfect formation. Each vessel bore the same angular predatory design as the Nemesis, though many appeared more advanced. Human ships, Tile whispered. So many of them. A communication alert sounded, and Atlas directed them back to the bridge. On the main screen appeared the face of a human, the first living human any of them had ever seen. The figure wore a dark uniform with insignia none of them recognized. "Nemesis, you have entered restricted space," the human stated, studying them with obvious surprise. "Identify yourself and explain the presence of non-human personnel aboard." "Defense Commander," Atlas responded. "This is Preservation Vessel Nemesis. Atlas system operating as designed. I have awakened after centuries of dormancy due to contact with these Alliance representatives. Initial hostility assessment has been completed and temporary clearance granted." The human commander's expression shifted from suspicion to shock. A preservation vessel? After all this time? The commander turned to speak to someone off-screen before addressing them again. "Maintain position. A diplomatic team is being dispatched." Hours later, Reed and his crew stood nervously as a smaller vessel docked with the Nemesis. The airlock cycled, and for the first time, living humans stepped aboard. Their leader, a woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, surveyed the alien crew with keen interest. "I am Admiral Lane of the Human Confederation. After 5 centuries of isolation, it seems we are finally rejoining galactic society, thanks to your curiosity." Reed stepped forward cautiously. "We meant no intrusion. We found the Nemesis adrift and—" The Nemesis was precisely where it was meant to be. Admiral Lane interrupted, "Waiting to be found by a species worthy of contact." The Admiral gestured, and the view screen activated to show what lay beyond the defensive perimeter. Not just ships and stations, but thriving worlds. Planets glowing with the lights of vast cities, massive orbital structures, and fleets that dwarfed anything the Alliance possessed. While the galaxy believed us defeated or extinct, we rebuilt. Admiral Lane explained. "We expanded. We prepared. The question now is whether the galaxy is ready for our return." Reed looked at his crew, then back at the human admiral. "What happens now?" Admiral Lane's expression softened slightly. "That depends on what you tell your Alliance about us. Your discovery has accelerated timetable centuries in the making. Humanity was always going to return to the galactic stage. You've simply hastened the day of reunion. Till stepped forward, or the day of reckoning." The Admiral smiled, an expression that managed to be both reassuring and deeply unsettling. "That, my curious friends, will depend entirely on how the galaxy receives us. Your actions have awakened not just a ship, but an entire civilization that has evolved in isolation, remembering old wounds while developing powers you cannot imagine." Reed felt a chill as he realized the full impact of their discovery. Their simple scientific curiosity had forever changed the course of galactic history. Humanity was returning, and the galaxy would never be the same.